Hello there, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed our previous British final segment. We walked through the rider field, rider by rider, and made some bold predictions that hopefully won't come back to embarrass us on next week's episode. Make sure you look in if somehow you've missed it. This is Fans Pulse Lap 2 of episode 28. We're now going to dive into another latest 360 news and views, where we'll pick up and discuss a range of topical Speedway news and results, including the Speedway Grand Prix, playoffs, and TV Speedway. Okay, we'll also bring you our latest travel back feature in partnership with Maitland Travel to once again enjoy and discuss a classic heat from the past. But where will we go this time? Stay tuned until the end to find out. Okay, let's catch up a little on some of the bigger news stories and results as things hot up in the Speedway Grand Prix and domestically. Let's start on the World Championship Speedway Trail. The Speedway Grand Prix series travelled out to the newly improved, newly enhanced Riga Stadium in Latvia, which staged last Saturday night's third from final round of this year's series. The overall consensus view was that, despite the track changes, sadly it wasn't necessarily amongst the best GPs of the season. Phil, I didn't see very much of it. I've only seen that a couple of heats, admittedly, but without wishing to be overcritical, in your opinion, Phil, was the much hoped for passing and repassing on that reshaped track? It didn't appear to quite materialise. Is that a fair view, Phil?
It's a fair view. I think they were a bit unfortunate. I'm not too sure how long that track's been laid, but I think having the World Cup practice, the World Cup semi-final practice, then the meeting, then practice for the Grand Prix, and then the meeting, the four within 24 hours is quite tough for any circuit. I mean, even Bellevue struggled with things like that. But on a fairly new circuit, it was difficult. They were unfortunate that it rained during practice on the Saturday before the Grand Prix, which meant the track cut up a bit. It also cut down the amount of preparation time they had with it. It then rained heavily at the start of the meeting, which means they couldn't prep the track like they did, basically subsequently then it started to chop up because they couldn't get the preparation into it. It rutted up, but the racing wasn't as good. But what it was, the big boys still turned up. The big boys used the ruts to their advantage, and we've got an intriguing situation anyway. I think that it wasn't the best Grand Prix in the world. However, we've got three blokes slugging it out now for the world title, and considering we've lost Freddie, Jack and Dan in the series, which could have completely made it a damp squib, we've actually got a really interesting series. And the racing was still pretty decent. It's close. There's a lot of talking points. Casper Rinja is throwing his bike at everybody still, and it's making it entertaining. And I thought it was still a good occasion. I still think they've done. I think Phil Morris and the guys did a very good job to get it to as good as they had to work very hard during the meeting, but they did. I think they did a decent enough job.
And Phil, when you hear you describe about the impact of the rain and it curtailed some of the track prep time, these are very real impacts, and you can understand why the track might not have been the way that the organisers would have wanted it to be. Nigel, one thing which I found kind of fascinating, maybe I'm the only one, the previous night there was the World Cup semi-final, and five of the current Grand Prix field took part in that meeting on Friday night. So despite having that additional track time, you might say, the night before, only one of those riders, and that was Mr. Lebedev's, remotely troubled a double-figure score in the Grand Prix itself. Anders Thompson finished with just 1 point, for example. Riddle me that, Nigel. Why would riders of that quality, with some additional practice the night before, perform so poorly 24 hours later?
You wouldn't know, would you? Again, like we've said many times, it's on the day, isn't it? You can't believe it, can you? I don't believe there should be a practice anyway, because they've all rode these tracks, and if they haven't rode them or whatever, it's the same for them all. I don't know why they have to do a practice, really. Maybe I'm wrong, that's just my opinion. And I certainly don't know do they still do this scoring thing for the fastest lap and all that lot? I mean, that's just taking it away from. I don't think that's right. Okay, have a practice, let everybody have a ride round, but we don't need the crowd. The supporters don't particularly see that, do they? I don't know what anybody gains from that. I don't know, but as you say, the riders that rode on the night before, they didn't perform the following day. Strange one, but it just goes to show them that it's what happens on the day. Machinery, it's done another 5 races, 6 races. Are they using the same bikes? And I don't know. It beggars belief sometimes, doesn't it? Like they've rode that night before and done really well. Turn up the following day, different score altogether.
Do you know, it's interesting, we talked to lots of riders and, they all at various times reveal how frustrating Speedway can be. But in some ways it's quite reassuring to know that even at the highest level of the sport, that riders of that quality still find some frustrations with it.
Conversely,
go on, sorry, Phil.
Conversely, I think after the semi-final, which involved Great Britain early in the season at Landshut, that both Robert and Dan made the final the following night. And I think there might have been some raised eyebrows that the fact they'd had a meeting the night before. So it's interesting it was a complete contrast on Saturday.
That is interesting, Phil. And you know what? It does bring into question that policy. I get it'll be out of convenience and logistics and all those good things, but to have a World Championship event the night 24 hours before the Grand Prix on the same track involving some of the same riders does seem questionable to some extent.
I think the biggest problem for the riders is that if you talk about Lebedevs or you could talk about the Danes, Thompson and Madsen and Jepsen Jensen, they're at the track at sort of 9 or 10 o'clock on the Friday, and they've gone all the way through that meeting. They've done practice. They've been there. They've done all the paperwork to be there at the time, to the scrutineering. They're there for probably best part of 12, 13, 14 hours on Friday. They then have to do exactly the same thing on Saturday. And that's the problem with these. That's the problem with the sprint races and these overqualifying, all these different things. The riders are there for a long time, and we've got really intense conditions. I think that in Rosloff and Łódź and Riga, it's bloody hot as well. You've got to stick about and you've got to get your diet right. You've got to eat the right things, hydrate. And it sounds daft and it sounds fairly normal, but with top athletes now, these guys they're not eating a lot because they've got to stay so light. But to be at somewhere for 14 hours, during the day and try and keep yourself focused and ready for when the meeting comes along, I think that's what the problem is with these qualifying sessions. I think the riders will tell you they're knackered, and it's a long day to stay mentally sharp. I think that's the biggest problem with them, and so it's probably a little bit too much, I think, at the moment.
No, that's actually a fascinating insight, Phil, and you're right. It's bad enough having to do a 9-to-5 job, never mind having to be 10 hours or 12 hours in a stadium and be everyone's beck and call for media and different other things. Phil, results-wise, the top 3 of Smarslik, Lambert and KURTZ, of course, did occupy the podium places in that order as well. Bartosz is back on top. And it would appear, with 2 rounds to go, very much going for gold, Phil.
It's far from over. I don't think. I think we're in a really. I mean, we're potentially away from the greatest Grand Prix season in the history, where we're 3 riders going for the title and the final. I mean, if Bartosz doesn't make the final in Voyens, and the other 2 do, we could have a 3-way slugfest in Torun, and that would be absolutely sensational. I mean, I wouldn't discount any of them. I really wouldn't. I think Robert's in a fairly decent place, even though he's in the 3rd. I think he's in a good place. I think his attitude. I spoke to Robert this week. He's saying all the right things. He's doing and saying all the right things. I think he's the best rider in the world at the moment. He's finished in the top 2 in the last 4 Grand Prix. He's a form man. He's got his Aztec stuff working, as Nigel said at the start of the show. He's found a sweet spot. He's found something that's working for him. Ashley Holloway is the best tuner in the world, and he's got Brady, and I think he's got Robert as well. And I think that Robert's just found something. And when you're in that little sweet spot, and you think he probably is thinking, I can do something here, and the other 2 have got the pressure on them. I think he's sitting there back, And I think he's in a good place. So that's what makes it fascinating. Bartos has got all the experience, all the know-how. He's bought the T-shirt. He knows how to get over the line. Brady's chasing, but Robert's sitting back. I think this is fascinating. I really do. I think, and there's a chance that we're going to have two absolutely blockbuster final 2 rounds. I might be wrong. Bartek could win in Voyens and the other two not make the final. It's game over. But boy, wonder we've got a great series, and that's exciting.
Well, do you know what? Within the next month or so, we'll find out that how those final 2 Grand Prix in Voyens and Torren work out. Incidentally, and this will come as no surprise to anyone, I did observe during the week that with those 2 rounds still to race, already Messrs Smarslick and Kurtz have now confirmed their top 7 status mathematically and a place in next year's series. Nigel, one question I wanted to sneak in here, and this was something that a 360 viewer raised with me. Given what we've just been talking about, and Brady Kurtz is still heavily involved in that shootout for the World Championship, what's your view, Nigel, on riders, and this is my words, not anybody else's, managing their performance level and perhaps even their point scoring for their club sides? I've picked up a few comments from 360 viewers suggesting, in their opinion, that Brady occasionally looks like he's holding back a little for Bellevue. And personally, given what we've just been talking about, I can understand that. I think that's not unreasonable. But what's your own thoughts, Nigel?
I'd have to agree with what you've been saying a little bit there. What they're thinking. You have to go back to Ipswich last year, was it Ipswich where Bellevue went? And Dan and Brady were a pale shadow of the normal Dan and Brady. But there again, they were going on Saturday to the Grand Prix, and certainly in Brady's case, he was going to try and win the World Championship. Dan was going for 3rd place, I think. You're not really going to you don't want to miss out on that, do you? Put it like that. So, yeah, again, as much as they'll want to do well for the clubs, yeah, it's got to play on your mind a little bit, hasn't it? Saturday, we're riding at Ipswich Thursday. We've got to go to Torren, wherever it was on the Saturday. It's going to play on the mind to a degree, and I think, yeah, it's a shame it comes to this, isn't it? A vital, important meeting in England, and then a World Championship decided 2 days after. But I reckon over years, it's always happened over the years, and riders have had to get over that. The professionals, but you do feel a little bit. The Bellevue supporters that night going to Ipswich would feel well let down by the top 2, wouldn't they? But I don't. It's hard, isn't it? Because Brady and Dan wouldn't want to let Bellevue down, but they also don't want to let themselves down as well, do they? Very, very hard, isn't it? It's a difficult, and you shouldn't have asked me this. It's a difficult question to answer that, is Derek. But Phil's got an answer here.
Can I interject on something? Right, I will agree. Yeah. Last year, Ipswich was an exceptional case. They had a close result at home. Ipswich were by far the best team in the league. They were going to win the league. It poured with rain at Ipswich at the start of the meeting, and they've got the biggest meeting of their lives on the Saturday. That was I think it was about 72 hours later. I think that's an exception to the rule. I think, and to be quite honest, Bellevue fans, who are probably the most opinionated in the Premiership, let's put it that way, even they were accepting at the time that was a bridge too far in those conditions, and the chances they had of turning Ipswich over and getting through to the final. I have not seen any evidence of Brady ducking out of anything at any other stage. And the reason I can back that up, I mean, he had, funny enough, he had quite an ordinary performance by his standards on Monday night, but I think the track was very different. And but he rode for Rosloff against Lublin on Sunday in the Extraliga. And he was absolutely sensational. And Mourinho had him up against the second bend fence, and he was ducking he only dropped a point. He beat Marslick 3 times, I think, and he was right on it. And I've not seen him duck out of anything at Bellevue. And that's the only meeting was at Ipswich last year, and I think everyone accepted that the timing of that was pretty damn awful, and they shouldn't be riding in a semi-final like that. And on top of that, it poured a rain. The track people were two-wheeling it round, and so why should they put their necks on the line when they've got a big meeting that time? I just think that was a a culmination of a lot of events and a perfect storm in the wrong way. And I've not seen them duck out anything. Brady's certainly not. And you know, he had a quiet one. Exactly. Listen, and the other thing we have to remember at Brady as well. He arrives at Bellevue on Monday, and this is exactly what we've just been discussing about riders' wear and tear. He rode a Grand Prix on Saturday under huge pressure, hot conditions. He then rides for Rosloff on Sunday against Lublin, massive meeting against Marslick 3 times, lots of pressure. That's his paymasters. That's the club he's got to perform for. He then has to get across here, and he's running against Kingston at Bellevue, and he still gets paid 11. He only drops 4, and everyone's going, well, you know, he hasn't had one of his great meetings. But we've had Brady's toughest meetings over Bellevue have come on the back of having 4 meetings on the trot. He's had to do like a Grand Prix, then Rosloff on a Saturday, Sunday, and then he's had a couple of bank holidays where they've had to turn up and do a midday at Bellevue and then go to Sheffield at night. And he's had a couple of real tough ones at Sheffield where he's run a couple of last places. That's just not acceptable, putting those double headers on Mondays. They'll put them on a Monday and do 2 meetings, and then Sheffield won't ride for 3 weeks. And yet they've made them ride twice in one day. And it doesn't make sense to have the crowd go. You're not going to have Sheffield people go to Bellevue in the afternoon to then go and do the same thing at night. You're better off separating those 2 local drivers. But the poor rider, like Jack and Brady, have done 3 colossal meetings on the trot with travelling, and then have to perform bloody twice on the Monday in England. And that's, I think, that does have a factor. And I would argue the point with Brady. I can't defend the thing at Ipswich last year. I think they're right to do what they did. I think they would, but they've certainly not ducked out of anything. I've not seen any evidence of them ducking out of anything at any stage, because Brady gives everything, and he's a proper old-fashioned British league rider. He you know, people who've ridden over here give it everything in most races. I've not, certainly one of his calibre. So, but I do understand why people come from. I do see people would question that. But people have got to remember fatigue as well. And I think lots of promoters and the organisation, the governing bodies, and that's not just the BSPL, that's PZM, that's DMUs, SVEMO, they've all got to look at this and look after the riders a little bit, the top riders, because I think it's too much what they're doing. I really do.
Poland won't care, or will they, Phil?
Well,
Poland won't care about what happens after
Sunday. Let's not get into Poland. Let's not get into the PZM.
Still learning the Riders' Championship. Did you think something, Phil? I think it might just be perception. You know, a lot of fans just see Brady, they put him on a pedestal quite rightly, world number 2, chasing the world title, and then, you know, doesn't score a maximum every week at the National Speedway Stadium. And sometimes people read into that and think, oh, is he really trying? But listen, the team won on Monday night, and it would have been a lot worse if Bellevue lost and Brady. Go on, Nigel.
This is maybe where Robert has a little bit of an advantage here over the others then, because, all right, he'll ride Saturday and Sunday, won't he, the Grand Prix Sunday, but then he won't be riding, well, he won't be chasing off back to England to ride Monday, will he, and that, so he might have a little bit more, be a bit fresher, might he, Robert, maybe in the long run?
He's still got Sweden on Tuesdays, but they've all
I would think Brady has it, or Dan has, have they? I don't know.
Yeah, but this is part of the game. This is what the Ricardsons and Pedersens down the years have had to do. It's managing your calendar is just as important as, you know, the logistics of engines and what you use and choose. Yeah. The calendar this is where it becomes, and that's why I think you can excuse Brady and Dan for being sensible last year in that sense. I honestly didn't see. I don't think I see any discerning voices against them, and I thought that was quite refreshing as well. That it was people said, you know what. You know, we can't stop you from going for a medal. Yeah, no, I'm not knocking Brady. No, I wasn't saying you. I meant the fans. I meant the fans last year were very fair. You can understand it, can't you? They were, well, certainly in Brady's case, he could have been world champion. A little bit more just on the night, or a bit less from Bartos, and he was world champion.
Thank you. Yeah, listen, thanks, guys. That was a good piece of debate, and I'm glad that some 360 speedsters had contacted me to raise that little question. Let's move on to
in a bit of trouble, don't you, Derek?
Oh yeah, I try not to. Let's move on to the Speedway World Cup, I should say. Ollie Allen and the Team GB management team have announced the squad of 10 riders under consideration for the forthcoming World Cup final in Warsaw. They are Dan Bewley, Tom Brennan, Will Cairns, Adam Ellis, Leon Flint, Luke Harrison, Robert Lambert, Cooper Rushen, Dan Thompson and Charles Wright, only 5 of whom will be selected for the final itself. Phil, back to you if you don't mind. Some initial observations. 3 of those riders are under 20 years of age. How magical for them to even be selected at this stage?
I think that says a lot about the structure of the Great Britain Speedway team. If you look at the past 5 or 6 years, they've made a conscious effort to bring younger riders into the fold and take them out to these European meetings, the under 19s, 23s, 24s, the FIM pairs, which have got a lot of. Great Britain have had a lot of stick from promoters for taking riders away for weekends and the missing meetings, but there is a reason for that. There's a method in the madness for that. It's to get riders out onto these continental tracks, and that means what is actually. I mean, it would be interesting to see some sort of graph because the age has come down dramatically about the riders who are going. I mean, people forget like Tom Brennan in 2021 ended up in the Speedway Nations, played a pivotal role in Great Britain. He won his races, got maximum points in those races, but he'd actually scored 20 points for Great Britain in Bydgoszcz in a European qualifier meeting, which sort of booked his place. And that was because he'd been doing them for 2 or 3 years. Even through COVID, they were doing these meetings, and that's what they're doing. If you look at now, straight away this year, Great Britain they've used Will Cooper and Luke Harrison in the Speedway Nations too. They've used them in the FIM European meetings. They put them in, they qualified for Macon in the European meeting quite recently, and that's because that's a conscious effort by Rob Painter, Vicky Blackwell and Ollie Allen to bring those riders and get them experience as quick as possible, which is what the Poles are doing and what the Danes have been doing. And that's what we're 15 years behind, but we're doing it now. And that's why we've got riders of that age group coming into squads. They won't be in the World Cup squad, obviously, but of course they're going off to do next weekend. They're doing the under 24, which is Leon, Will, Cooper, Luke Harrison, all in that team with Dan Thompson. So they're doing big meetings on big tracks and getting used to setups and organising themselves for these. I mean, Nigel, no, you go to these big meetings, it's a whole different world when you've got different scrutineerings, different rules, different setups, everything's different. You've got to use different bike situations and setups. So this is all experience. So they're part of the squad on merit and if you look at their scores this year, they've been terrific. But they're not going to be going to the Narodovi. But for them, it's a commendation of progress, and they are very much part of the setup, and they're being gradually eased up the ladder. And at this moment in time, you wouldn't argue that Will, or certainly Will at the moment, has gone up a level. Will might be sniffing around. Getting into into a top 5, top 4, top 3 in the next couple of seasons. It doesn't matter whether he's 18. It doesn't matter if he's 16 in any sport. If you're good enough, you're old enough, as far as I'm concerned. And it's good to see. And I think that it's a really good method, and I think it's paying off.
Thank you, Phil. Yeah, all part of the World Championship conditioning, I guess, for those young guys. Crabby, Robert Lambert, Dan Bewley, subject to fitness, of course, largely pick themselves, of course they do. Does the Saturday night's British final take on a whole new meaning and purpose for the other lads, Nigel? A chance, potentially, to make it nigh on impossible for Ollie Allen not to pick them?
I think Ollie will pretty much have his 4, won't he? I would think. But, there's room. If somebody does stand out, there maybe is a last-minute chance. I don't know, but I'm sure Ollie will pretty much have his team picked, won't he? He might wait on his 5th man a little bit. I'm pretty sure he'll know his top 4, won't he? And I'm guessing that it'll be Robert. Everybody's hoping Dan's riding. Well, we all hope so, don't we? Like 75% fit Dan will do, won't it, as long as he's okay. Tom, Adam Ellis, I would imagine that's around about your 4, and then your 5th man. I don't know. Maybe an extra good showing at Bellevue, maybe sway Ollie. I don't know. He'll pretty much know what his team is, I'm sure. But it's good for the young lads, all experience. And you can't buy experience, can you? That just comes with doing it. And fair play. They've earned the right to be there.
Thank you.
There's a lot of I noticed there's a lot of fan comments about why Chris Harris isn't in it and why is he not in it and why is he not picked in it, and there's a lot of discussion over that. Now, Chris actually retired from Great Britain a couple of seasons ago. He made it very clear that he retired, and but Great Britain have a process in place. I know that very closely. They ask riders to participate in all their different things, to which they think improve every rider, about the professionalism, about the branding, about how they go about their business. There is a very strict protocol if you want to be part of the Great Britain scene, which has made them be world champions a couple of times over the past few seasons. They've made strenuous attempts to up the levels of professionalism. There's absolutely brilliant amounts of expertise goes into it, but the riders have to participate in that, and they have to make themselves available for that, not just now, not just during the season, but during the winter. There's Zoom calls, there's a lot of background goes into it that's made this team what it is, and some riders don't do that. And so the riders were picked, the people who participate and try to better themselves and be professional and go about things in the right way. And that's why they said, so there's a lot more than meets the eye about this squad. It's about development, it's about progression, it's about all the different things that go into it. There's psychology, there's nutrition, there's lots of things, and everything is about the optimum. If you don't think the Poles are doing that and the Danes are doing that, you are severely wrong. These are top line athletes now with teams behind them, with money and backing. And Great Britain have done that now. But you have to participate in that, and certain riders don't, and that's why they're not in the squad, because it's based on the people who are trying to better themselves.
I do find the whole thing fascinating, and I don't disagree with it for 1 second, because it's already delivered for Team GB. But to your point, Phil, you can't just turn up and ride. You've got to buy in. You've got to participate. The one potential fly in the ointment, which would be interesting to see outside looking in, is if some hotshot kid came along who was a world beater age 16, 17, 18, but chose not to participate in that scheme. Would they genuinely never be selected?
Well, I think if a rider was genuinely clever, I mean, for instance, if we use Will Cairns as an example, if Will Cairns didn't think that was the right thing to do, then you would severely doubt his credentials anyway. I think that anyone worth their salt, anyone with any aspirations to be successful in any sport, would want to better themselves in any way. I think they would also make exceptions. I think they have done in the past already. There's riders they've brought in who don't necessarily subscribe to this, their thinking and their professionalism, but they would always make it. I mean, listen, if a Darcy Ward type figure came in and walked in and went, he was like 16 but didn't want to know, I'm sure that I think they would bend the rules themselves to do that. But I still think what they're doing right now with the talent they've got and the rider pool they've got, which is extremely small, and it's getting better thanks to Neil Vatcher and Jackie Vatcher and the work they're doing. That is making progress. But the rider pool compared to what the Danes and the Poles have got is absolutely minuscule, and they are trying to wring out the last drop of everything we've got, and it's not an easy job because the expectation is high, and it's a massive blow losing Ty, to lose a third rider of his quality. From where we were 3 years ago in Rostov when we missed out in the final race, it's a big ask to even get a medal in the Narodovi. Let's be fair; those three teams look absolutely red hot.
Well, listen, some impressive work being managed behind the scenes in the Team GB camp, and we can see some dividends already having been delivered. So keep up the good work, Team GB. And that World Cup final is 2 weekends away. That's August the 29th out in Warsaw. Let's move on and cover off just a couple of fixtures. I'm going to actually, on the hoof, just cherry pick a couple of fixtures that affect, in our view at least, directly affect the playoff race in the Premiership and the Championship. So apologies if I don't mention your team That's only because, as you will have seen in last week's episode, we've discounted your team from featuring. So in the Premiership, first off, tonight as we speak, Thursday, 13th of August, Leicester and Sheffield. The Tigers are almost guaranteed the aggregate bonus point, but of course would love to pull off a vital away win and leapfrog the Lions. Phil Lanning, we've more or less on 360 waved Leicester through already as having secured a playoff spot in the Premiership. In our opinion, Phil, I know they might not be lots of points ahead of some of the other clubs, but given the remaining fixtures and who they're against, etc., we think that the Lions would literally need to collapse now to be overhauled.
Yeah, I think the playoffs in both leagues now look, even though there's still a few meetings to go, I think they've taken shape, and I'd be very surprised if the top four in either league changed substantially now. I think Leicester should be there. I think the Premiership was really between Kingsland or Ipswich for the fourth place, you would think, and Bellevue, I think we're obviously on air now, but I mean, Bellevue get a result with Northampton tonight, they finish top, whatever happens. But I think it's between the old East Anglian rivals who gets the fourth place. I mean, that's nip and tuck now, what happens with that, because Ipswich have been up and down, they've had lots of different issues. Kingston look a little bit more of a settled side, and they've got a bit of momentum about them. So I think Leicester should be fine. I think Leicester. I think it's a Leicester Bellevue final. But to be honest, I think that I'd be surprised if it wasn't that.
Could well be right, Nigel. Let's not write off the remaining fixtures and who may or may not get to the playoffs in the Premiership. Nigel, on Monday night next week, Kings Lynn travel to Sheffield. If I got my facts right, the Stars won at Owlerton a few weeks ago only, and will fancy a repeat. They weren't too far off at the National Speedway Stadium on Monday night. They made the Aces work very hard, losing by just 6 points. Ideally, Kings Lynn will need to, in my opinion, Kings Lynn will need to repeat that away win at Owlerton on Monday. My concern for the Stars is that they're about to run out of fixtures a little bit quicker than some of the other sides who they're challenging for the playoffs, Nigel.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like Phil says, Kings Lynn are pretty settled, aren't they, at the minute? Sheffield's very much reliant on guests, aren't they? I think Josh Pickering, will Josh be back for Monday? He must be a massive loss, not just for his point scoring, what he does on the track, but he's such a positive guy off it, isn't he? He seems to be a massive part of Sheffield, does Josh Pickering. As I say, not just his point scoring, his enthusiasm and everything. So, and then obviously with Jack Holder out, it's a bit of a big blow losing two lads like that. Is Josh Pickering back for Monday, do we know, or not? I don't know. Do you know, Phil?
No, there's been no update on his fitness. He's obviously missing tonight. So he's hopefully be back, because he is a key man.
I mean, as I say, I think it's not just on the track, in the pits, I think, by what I hear, and he's full of enthusiasm for it, isn't he? He wants to win. He must be massive for Sheffield, he must, on and off the track. So, key man having Josh Pickering back, I reckon.
He is now. He's the real deal is Josh, and all sorts of ways, not just on track. Let's dive into the championship. Just two fixtures that are happening tomorrow night that I wanted to touch on. The involved teams who are still in the shake-up at the top of the league. Tomorrow night at Armadale, Edinburgh meet Poole. Once again, two of the current top four doing battle. Monarchs have already beaten Poole at Armadale this season. I think that was in the BSN Series semi-final first leg, if I remember correctly. And they will feel that at this stage they will need to do that again to try and avoid falling back a little at the top of the championship table. It should be a cracking meeting. Nigel, just to stick with you, Poole don't lose too many meetings, we know that. Berwick did bang in a couple of late 5-1s last Saturday night to pinch a win over the Pirates when it looked like Poole were unlikely to lose. Edinburgh is such a tough place to win at, though, unless you're Glasgow, of course. If anyone can, though, Poole can. Right replacement for Will Cairns tomorrow night, but Poole undoubtedly will be helped by the strategic guest signing of Eddie Kennett at reserve tomorrow night.
Poole always manage to pull one out the bag, don't they? Odd Midlow, when everybody knocks Poole, don't they? But there again, nobody likes winners, do they? But Midlow pulls it out the bag all the time, doesn't he? Anybody could have signed Eddie Kennett, couldn't they, if they'd thought on? But again, Middlelow jumped in before him and got him signed, and he'll get a load of stick for it, but it won't bother Middlelow a lot, will it? Because Poole just keep on winning. But no, it'd be a tough meeting, won't it? And Cooper maybe is not just as sharp as he was, is he? Maybe need Cooper back on it. I see they've signed the American
Lightcap, yeah.
Aye, he had quite a good night, I would have thought, for a first night. Did he get 4 or 5 points?
5 points, yeah.
Yeah, I would have thought that was good for a first night. Again, Middlelow, he can pull them out the bag, can't he? And if anybody's going to get any team you want to go to and get dragged along with the occasion and on the roller coaster, you're going to get dragged along at Poole, aren't you? So you've just got to get points, you know. They're just so good at doing that. Everybody knocks them. They knock the state of the track. I don't think it certainly won't bother Middlelow at all, will it? You know, they just go about the business of winning, and they know how to win.
Middlelow must have pulled out more rabbits than Paul Daniels ever did. Let's move on. Also tomorrow night, about 30 miles away from Armadale, Glasgow will meet Redcar. The Bears will still feel that they can qualify for the playoffs. They desperately need to win at Glasgow on Friday. However, they do have 2 more, in my opinion, winnable away trips left to Berwick and Workington. Tigers are still to visit Teesside, which happens in a couple of weeks' time at the end of the month. And Glasgow, of course, won't want to undo their great away success achieved at Edinburgh last week. Phil, the Bears are handicapped still by having lost twice already at home in the championship season. They're plenty good enough to win on the road. Pressure's building and time's beginning to run out on them.
I actually think that it's interesting because Edinburgh were 6 up at Glasgow with 2 races to go 2 weeks ago, and they were pretty much 6 up with 1 corner to go last Friday, and they somehow only came away with 2 draws, and that's actually made Edinburgh vulnerable because they've now got Poole. I would fancy Poole to get results at Edinburgh. I think Edinburgh, their belief, psychologically, they've thrown that away last week. I think Poole looks strong going there. And suddenly then, Berwick, I've got Edinburgh home and away to go. And Berwick have got a certain Mr. Morris who was 6 rides unbeaten for Glasgow. So they'll go there full of belief. And Reid Batty's now ridden at Armadale. So it's actually, that may just open the door for Redcar because that race is up for grabs, and that means they've got and Redcar have got Glasgow home and away. So Glasgow's still got Poole and Scunthorpe to come at home. They've got to win. If they win 2 of those last 3 home meetings, I think they're home and hosed. They've still got to go to Plymouth and Redcar. So it's actually quite intriguing the way that's just unfolded. Edinburgh would look to be when they were at Glasgow, when they were 6 up with 2 to go. If they'd won that meeting, they would have been top of the league. And instead, they've thrown away points, and it's just made them a little bit vulnerable. And I think they just instead of looking ahead, they're now looking behind, thinking, "Oh, hang on a minute," and so suddenly there's an opportunity. I just think Redcar have got quite a lot to do. I think Redcar have got to win at Glasgow on Friday night, and I think that's the one. I think for both Glasgow and Redcar, that's like a proper old-fashioned. Like football in terms, it'd be like a 6-pointer or it's like a 5-pointer. That if Glasgow win, I think that may well kill off Redcar their chances. But Berwick have still got a chance of overhauling Edinburgh. It's still in their own hands, effectively.
And everything we've just been talking about for the last 5 minutes around the playoffs, it's only because of the playoffs that we get these fringe benefits, and it's going to be a nervy few weeks for those clubs vying for a top 4 finish. Let's move on to the travel back feature. Go on, Nigel. Sorry.
People criticise the playoffs, don't they? But I don't know why, because it can only be good, can't it? Because Poole would have it all tied up more or less now. The championship would be very near over,
and Bellevue would have won the Premiership in mid-August.
So what good's that? Exactly. The playoffs. It's the modern times, and I think the playoffs are brilliant. They create massive atmosphere. The finals are something else. I don't know why people moan about it. It keeps it going right to the end of the season, doesn't it? It's not finished now in August. We're not finished. We're far from finished. You know, a long way to go yet. A lot of meetings to go to find the winners. And you know what? Yeah, Poole have. You expect Poole to go on and win it. You maybe expected Poole to beat Berwick, didn't we? Home and away in the cup, but they didn't. So again, anything can happen, and I don't think. Well, Poole certainly won't be taking it for granted, will they? Middle won't allow that to happen. So you know, plenty to go for, I would say.
Plenty to go for. Lots of jeopardy, lots of nervous nights, and you know. Even once you get to the semi-finals and the finals themselves, you can set your watch by the drama and the tension and all that good stuff. Anyone whose team has made a playoff final will vouch for that. I'm quite sure.
Paul sorry, good omen as well with Slater. Paul have got a good omen. A few years ago, Chris Holder missed the rest of the season, and Greg Hancock came in and won his only top flight title with Paul. Came in, and Greg Hancock is the one behind Slater Lightcap being at Paul.
Listen, you've got to remember Slater Lightcap is in the SGP too, so you know he's no mug. You know, he's been around the European scene for a little while now, and he's a very very capable rider. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that travel back feature is the third time I'm trying to say it. It's coming up shortly, is what I'm trying to say. We're going to be whipping you back to 1998 for some action that you will love, or guaranteed your money back. Stay with us.
Derek,
yes,
is it definitely 1998 that race?
I've got a sneaky thing it's 1991.
I've got a sneaky thing it's 1991.
Well, when we come to it, Phil, I was going to confess and say I wasn't 100% certain. So
Captain says on it 98 for some reason, but I looked it up to see when Floppy rode for Ipswich. It was 90, I think they won it. Ipswich won it in 91. The British League 2-4s. I think it was 91.
So it was even longer ago than I thought it was. Listen, all to come, but although Phil's giving you a spoiler alert. But anyway, listen, we're not going to talk about, as promised, the big news that broke this week. And we have been hoping for lots of positive delivery from British Speedway, from Speedway Futures, or any entity who has the capability and the connections to announce something positive and shiny and new that we're all going to benefit from, and that ultimately will lend itself to growing back the sport. And no sooner had we spoke about it last week that we were all very pleasantly surprised, if not excited, by the announcement that this weekend's British final would be broadcast live on terrestrial TV, courtesy of ITV, for the first time in 41 years. I think since British Speedway was live broadcast on the ITV network. This is, in anyone's terms, super exciting news. How good is it that the meeting will be broadcast live by ITV? For the first time in decades, British Speedway will have some exposure through a terrestrial channel. Okay. It's not ITV1. We're not competing with Anton Deck and Coronation Street, but this is still something that we should really celebrate, in my view. And who knows where it might lead. Nigel, we've banged on about getting the sport back on terrestrial TV and give it the exposure and the audience that it deserves and needs. As a first step, this has just got to be wonderful news, Nigel.
Must be the biggest news for Speedway since Northampton coming in, mustn't it? So, all good, isn't it? And the other good thing about it is the promoters have finally realised it needs to be on a Saturday night. British final, biggest meet. Well, one of the biggest meetings of the season. It's on a Saturday night at possibly the best racetrack, or as good a racetrack in the country as there is. And ITV have come on board. What more can they want? Let's hope that everything, it's hard game to get right all the time, but I'm sure in Andy Meredith doing the track, they have one of the best track men. Phil Morris running the meeting. My opinion here, I get shot down now and again for it, but in Phil Morris organising, running, trying to keep to time, etc., trying to keep everybody happy, Phil Morris is the man for the job. Let's hope it all goes according to plan. We can keep to the timetable, and we do a massive, great advert for British Speedway, and then let's hope we can move forward from that. And who knows what may happen? Who knows what doors may open? You have to kick them doors to be open. They won't just open on their own. They'll have to be kicked open. But let's hope we can push on and do that if we've got the right people somewhere to do it. Phil will know more about that than me anyway.
Phil, I'll bring you in on this. Given the good work that you do and the persistent work that you do season in, season out, Phil, and some of the conversations that you've contributed to over a long period of time, other sports have built and strengthened their profile on the back of ITV4 even, with associated sponsorship and revenue into their sport on the back of it. It's an obvious thing to say, but on Saturday night, we will all want that to be a standout meeting in front of a nice healthy crowd. And who knows, Phil, in the fullness of time, what this could lead to for British Speedway.
I think it's been. It was underestimated at the time. It was taken for granted at the time that what World of Sport brought to Speedway. Speedway, as we know it in Britain, was born out of World of Sport, and obviously the connection with my father was the one who put it on ITV and at London Weekend Television and World of Sport, and we forget that 13 million people watched it on a Saturday afternoon. Then when people watched World of Sport, which was, you're talking about at the time, fourth or fifth of the nation were able to watch Speedway, and what that did for our Speedway across the British leagues. And that was the halcyon days for the sport. I don't think that's a coincidence. That was the exposure it gave. And that coverage was basically our marketing brochure for promoting British Speedway. Everything that came on the back of that. And they weren't the sexiest sponsors in the world, but they were at the time. We had Gulf Oil, even Gulwar at National League Riders Finals. We had some other, we had fairly good sponsors. We had Sunday Mirror was sponsored World Finals and all the World Championship rounds. We even had Durex for a test series, but let's not get into that too much, shall we? But nonetheless, all of those deals, and a lot of money came into the sport on the back, and fans came into the back of World of Sport with that. But now terrestrial TV is where it's at, because that free to air and being not the Speedway fans. Doesn't matter about it sounds awful. It doesn't matter Speedway. It's the floating the floating viewer we want. That's what the key area is. That someone's flicking through the channels through free to air, and suddenly they think, "What's this?" And it's a decent. Oh crikey, what the hell's that? I'll go. They live in bloody Rochdale, and they'll think, "Well, there's my local track. I'm going to go along there." Whether it's you're watching it in Plymouth or Glasgow or Workington, that's the key. It's free to air. It's getting the floating viewer, and that's the key area. And I find it. How can you look at me with my grey hair now and how old I am, that when I was 15 years old, I was sitting next to my dad at Oddsall in late 1985 as a 15-year-old kid, helping my dad on his commentary and did his statistics and watched it, that I would be now 41 years later that we haven't been on ITV since then on free to air. And that's a terrifying statistic, and I think it's a massive moment for the sport. We have to capitalise that this is not, ITV4 is not basically, okay, we're on TV, that's it, fold our arms, go wait for the money to pour in and the sport's great now. No, it's not. ITV4 is literally our marketing brochure. We've got it on there, there's the viewing, that's the people, we've got them there, we've got the captive audience to go and look at it. Now make that work, but someone's got to make that work. It's not the answer to everything, it's just the start of the answer. And that's the key area. And I'd like to think we have got good people involved in the sport. There's a lot of negativity. I mean, Speedway is not just down to promoters or whatever. When we talk about 40 years since being on ITV, that's 40 years of lack of investment from promoters, putting it back into owning stadia, things like that. We didn't have investment back when things were good, and now we don't have that stadium. We don't own the stadiums. Only a couple of tracks actually own their own stadiums now, which is so pivotal. So we got an opportunity. They've manufactured this. It's made it happen, but they've still. This isn't just a click of the fingers. Now that's fine. We're on ITV4. Everything's sunny and rosy in the garden now. They've got to use that viewing, and they've got to nurture ITV4 now and make sure we stay on free-to-air television. That's going to be the key area now. This is just the start, but hopefully it's the start of something good.
Thank you very much, Phil. Yeah, let's hope, let's hope for the sake of the sport that we all love that this is a market turning point. But listen, on behalf of everyone involved in 360 Speedway, huge credit to everyone involved behind the scenes who have no doubt worked extremely hard to create this showcase opportunity, exactly the type of positive delivery that we've all been looking for. So again, if you can't travel to Manchester on Saturday night, make a point of tuning in, watch it on catch up, even if you watched it first time around, and do contribute to some of the positive, hopefully, feedback on social media afterwards. Listen, we really appreciate your thoughts out there, so get yourselves involved in the discussion and comment below. Right, now it's time once again for a feature in which our sponsor Maitland Travel invite you to travel back in time. Given Mick Bratley provided us last week with an update on the still hoped for return of the sport of the Peterborough Panthers, we're rolling back to enjoy just one heat of spectacular action from one of those big 4-team tournament finals day occasions at the East of England Showground. This one features a 360 faller, an all-round good guy, David Floppy Norris, representing Ipswich in this heat, up against Billy Hamill of Cradley, Peter Ron of Coventry, and Jan Anderson of Reading. We believe this heat to have been in 1991, according to Phil Lanning. Tell us if you know better. Sit back then as we whisk you back to Peterborough 1991. Let's take in the crowd, the atmosphere, and the full-out talents on show. Enjoy.
From Reading and Sweden, grid number 2 is Billy Hamill, who had a second place first time out. Grid 3, David Norris of Ipswich, no score yet. And on the outside, it is Peter Rawn from Coventry. Coventry need points, but it's difficult to see where they're going to find inspiration from. With Madushek, we have seen they played the reserve, and he looked under tune, certainly for Peterborough. Heat 6, Anderson, then Hamill, grid 3, Norris, outside is Rawn. Here we go. Up to the corner, and once again from the inside it is Anderson, although it's a flying start from Rawn, and Rawn just had the drop. Rawn leads it, second place is Anderson, third place is Hamill, and David Norris at the back. Hamill boring a hole through Anderson, moves into second place, and Norris has moved around the outside of the Swedish veteran, but still up front of his Rawn, and now Hamill's gone after him, and here comes Norris, and Norris making his bid, and Norris is going like a greyhound. Norris absolutely flying around the outside in white, and it looks like he's come from last to first in one lap, and that is little short of sensational. A radical piece of speedway from David Norris. He was at the back, and he just seemed to find an extra gear. And now we have got Billy Hamill moving outside Peter Rawn, who was leading, and he has gone from last to third, and he's under some pressure from Anderson. And this really is one for the connoisseur. Still the race not over, because here comes Hamill. Hamill going hard after David Norris, and Norris has ridden, well, just about the finest race of his young career. Terrific stuff. Last to first, he wins it. Second place is Hamill. Third place there was Rawn. And this Peterborough crowd really are loving that. That was a cracker.
Nigel, isn't it actually very nice to not only see some great action from the showground once again, but which was such a key part of the British Speedway scene for all those decades, but also to see the crowd, the appeal of those 4-team tournament finals, Nigel. Can we have them back, please?
Well, I mean, it used to be someday that did, didn't it? You know, the stadium was packed, wasn't it? The noise, the atmosphere, and generally, well, I rode in a few of them, and it was always a red-hot day down there. And I didn't particularly enjoy them, to be honest with you, but, you know, for the crowd and everything, they were massive days for the supporters. It meant a lot to them to go there. And I know we went once with Stoke and we won it. And, you know, everybody was just so overjoyed by it. And the place was packed, wasn't it? With loads of different supporters for the clubs. They were great days, great times. Can it come back? I don't know. A lot of hard work's needed, but I don't know. Can it? I'm sure. Let's have a see what happens at the British final on Saturday, because everybody says it's no good being on telly, because when it's on telly, people don't go to watch it. The proof's on Saturday night, and it's free to watch on telly, but you can also go and watch it live. let's see what happens. You know, see how it goes. I don't know. The fours, they built up, didn't they, over the qualifying rounds, and then you got to Peterborough for the fours, for the finals, and then they doubled up, didn't they? The first and the second division had the final at the same time. I don't know. They were just good days, weren't they? Then it'd be smashing if you could bring them days back and them crowds back. And hey, you never say never, do you? A lot of hard work's needed, but maybe he'll have more ideas than me. He's cleverer than me. He knows the score.
It was just a very different. It was a very different and very unique format, and I think that's what worked. It was a step change from the bread and butter one team versus another format, wasn't it?
The problem with it was very expensive. Series to run. You had to pay for 4 rounds, out of 1, and I think that's what did it in the end. Just the expense of it. I know everybody had a good day what got to the finals, but it could be expensive getting there, and if you didn't get there, you know, in later days it cost a lot of money.
Phil, just looking at the riders involved in that heat, Phil, you know, we're sometimes guilty with the passage of time of forgetting riders that we haven't seen or spoken about very much in a while. But, you know, Peter Rowan, Jan Anderson, Billy Hamill were all prolific scorers and performers in British Speedway's top tier. And there was a very young David Norris who, in his own right, was a top talent indeed, Phil, wasn't he?
Yeah, and this I have to be fairly. It's difficult for me to be unbiased here because obviously my father was the commentator, and I'm pretty sure that Floppy, who I know really well, I'm sure that's I think one of his favourite races of all time because my dad was commentating. He grew up listening to my dad on World of Sport, watching Pennell, Carter, and these guys. And Floppy he missed that era because Floppy came in 1988, and of course ITV had stopped covering Speedway in '85, but the region still did it here and there, and the region Anglia TV did it with Jerry Harrison, who was a very, very well known and top commentator and presenter. Was the director of that sort of Speedway. He was very passionate about Jerry Harrison. Was very passionate. They had Ipswich Kingston. They used to have the Pride of the East on every year. The 16 lapper at Anglia and the fours. And I remember vividly that if the region didn't, my dad would commentate and go to the meeting. And if it was really spectacular, the actual World of Sport would pick it up on the Saturday and go, "This was great." And they do a little cut of 3 or 4. And they did the fours quite a lot because. I think one year Newcastle won it, and Martin Scarisbrick.
I remember.
Came through and rode. I think Scarisbrick came from last to first in one race, and then a couple of years later, Gary Havelock did it for Middlesbrough. He's a YTS boy, and he came in. Mark Fiora got injured, and he came in as the hero reserve and won the meeting for them. And it became a bit of a sort of cult, this fours meeting, because like the 16 lapper was so dramatic at Ipswich, the fours always served up something special. And Floppy actually in that race, that last to first, and the way he uses the berm on the outside and goes around, it's very, very reminiscent of Scarisbrick and with Havy in those years as well. And it was a great occasion. I remember vividly Middlesbrough won it in 85 and 86 on the trot, and they're a noisy bunch, the Teessiders, and they were at I think the far right of the main stand. There was always the groups of fans, and that's what they liked, because it was such a great atmosphere. Everyone got together, and Nigel was part of those meetings as well. They were hard because the riders you could end up having 2 rides. You just have 2 rides, and you could go out in the semi and go all that way for 2 rides and get nothing for it. But the fans loved it, and that was always pretty special. I just remember, I know Floppy says about that race because it was the one that my old man was commentating on. Nigel's had a couple with my dad. I remember Nigel. It was on Screen Sport, I think. Nigel went to Stoke to Eastbourne in '86 and beat Gordon Kennett from the back in one race, and so that was not done very often at Eastbourne. So there's a good race for Nigel as well to remember.
Right.
What did you try and find on YouTube, Nigel?
See?
And Russell always had plenty to say about it down at Eastbourne in them days.
I remember a 30-man brawl the following year at Eastbourne when Martin Dugard and you crashed in the Cup semi-final.
Yeah, I remember that. I've still got the mark on my hand to show you now if you want it.
I took the pictures of the crash. And it made it look like it was your fault. Yeah, it was genuinely. That's how long ago it was. Now my boys does the pictures.
Yeah, I can remember that. And then I went down there later on that year because we caused that much controversy at Stoke. They invited me back to the open meeting down there.
Yeah, but that force. I mean, they were genuinely. I mean, if someone says to me, if someone talks about that was one of the great underestimated, you know, people talk about the BLRCs and World Finals and things, but those fours days, people look for that, and for some reason, it was. I mean, apart from one year, I remember it was always good weather. I can't
always red hot. I can never remember it.
And the bars were outside, and people used to be standing outside behind the main stand, and there was like these different people selling, and people just want. It was just a great day, and they always packed out. They must have had 3 or 4. One year they had they did a Grand Slam on they did a Grand Slam individual, which Martin Goodwin won, I think, and then they had the fours, and they had this sort of festival weekend, which was great, really great.
Only limited by your imagination, Phil Lanning. Yeah,
I'll tell you who did rub his hands at them meetings. Norrie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Norrie did. The man behind the bar. Another one of Speedway's characters, though, wasn't Norrie? Everybody knew Norrie, didn't they?
Brilliant.
They used to help Ivan a little bit, and everybody knew Norrie.
Yeah. No, that meeting, that race, just. I mean, people forget, like, Billy was in his early days then. Billy Hamill was in his... Jan Anderson was a veteran then, and Peter Rawn, of course. I mean, the quality of those... I mean, it wasn't... I wouldn't remember... I had to say, I remember the fours. I remember fondly for being a National League event rather than a first division.
Yeah.
It was a second division thing. I preferred it as that, but that you know, Billy Hamill went on to be obviously a world champion. Jan Anderson was, I think, Reading were the reigning champions that year, and obviously Peter Rawn won a World Cup he was a hero reserve for Denmark in '83. But they were quality. But it was good to see Floppy do that, because Floppy was a really good British League rider in his day. He punched high against some really top. I mean, when he was getting 9-point average, there were some big names in that league.
He must have gone well.
Yeah, people don't reflect on Floppy.
In that league.
Yeah, he was a good. Floppy was good, and he'll owe me a pint after watching this as well. Now, been so nice.
Hope you're doing well, David Norris, if you're looking in, as you often do. Tell me, you're watching at home, what's your personal recollections of those riders, or of visiting the showground, or of those big 14 tournament final occasions? Please do share your memories with us below. Remember, if you're thinking of an overseas trip, Speedway or relaxation, give our sponsors first option. Tell them 360 sent you. You'll find details of how to contact Maitland Travel and how to download their 2026 brochure in the description below. Watch out for this very travel back heat being published on our Facebook page next Thursday. So that was, those two can talk. Nigel Crabtree and Phil Lanning can talk, I tell you. That was a big old segment for you. I hope you all enjoyed it out there. I'm sure you had to pause it a couple of times. That was a look around the big talking points of the week. Do let us know if there's anything that we've missed that you would like to hear us talking about. Please stay with us for Fans Pulse Lap 3. I'll be talking Speedway with a star of the future, Seth Norman.